Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
All right, we're back on. All right, we'll get going in a couple minutes here. For those that are on already, if I'm going to mute this, too many devices open in front of me. If you do have any questions, whether it is on Facebook Live or on Zoom, we'll answer those at the end of the little presentation here. So feel free to use the chat box when you're on Zoom or the window down below within Facebook Live. And we'll get to all those as soon as we get to the information we want to cover here today. So it is 4 o'clock, and Spoon, seems like you're ready to go, right?
I am ready.
All right, man. So let's kick this thing off. I appreciate you joining for this segment. When you reached out and inquired about some of the stuff that was going on, it was a no-brainer. You and I have had the chance to speak last year at the soccer showcase that CPS puts on, and we both spoke at a couple coaches meetings throughout the course of the last year. So I really enjoy what you all do for the kids, and we're all part of the same mission here, helping them get to where they want to be and meet their goals. So it's a really important thing, and I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you having us be a part of this, and just it's a team effort, literally a team effort, where we all are doing this for the greater good of the student athletes from across Chicago. And I think that Next College Student Athlete does a great job in offering their services to many of the coaches, athletic directors, coaches, and student athletes across Chicago Public School and the Public League. And we just want to partner with that. And as you just mentioned, it's part of the greater good of allowing everyone to lend a hand and getting these kids to the next level of things. And that's what we're all about. The High School Holla Sports Show. We do things in a way that allows us to uh, go ahead and offer our services through media exposure. We do a weekly uh, high school podcast, high school sports podcast. You can find us at urbanfieldhousemedia.com. You can also follow us on Facebook at Urban Fieldhouse, on Twitter at Urban Fieldhouse, and on SoundCloud at Urban Fieldhouse Media. We also have an iTunes and Google Play, Urban Fieldhouse Media. And our show is really a segmented show. I know a lot of the coaches that are on right now have been on a guest on our show. As Nelson just mentioned, he's been a guest on the show and did a great job. And we just want to offer our student athletes and coaches the notoriety and exposure, especially for the student athletes to get into the next level. Our show is built on several different segments that we have, and one that we're very proud of, and we'll get into later. But this opportunity to partner with NCSA is a great opportunity, not only for the city of Chicago, but especially for Chicago Public Schools. And we look forward to the things that this partnership between the two of us can offer.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's one thing I know growing up, there really wasn't many choices or many options. Like you waited for the newspaper to come and either your name was in it or it wasn't, your school was in it or it wasn't. But there weren't all these different media outlets. And I think what's happened over time is a lot of the newspaper press may have died down, with the exception of those, super elite athletes or maybe a few editorial pieces here and there. So it's made it difficult in that realm. And I think people are still wanting that, but what you do is you provide the supplemental stuff. Like you said, you reach out to the coaches, you highlight the players. And I think that combined with a lot of the tools that we offer really open up some doors for these kids that need it the most.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to what we have established when we first met at the soccer thing, and that's the All In Award. And that was a great opportunity and a great event. And I'm sure that you want to speak more on that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna cover a lot of that today. And I know a lot of the kids are interested and the coaches too. So before we get into that part, I did just want to update and let everybody know about our team. And I think that's something that oftentimes is either misunderstood or not really highlighted. You see a lot of individual faces that are out there from time to time. Some families have the chance to speak to members of our team on the phone occasionally. But we're a Chicago company, right? Started 20 years ago by Chris Kraus. Not far from where the current office is, but we're just a little bit north of Division, a little bit west of Halstead, right there between Goose Island, Old Town, Lincoln Park, surrounded by a number of different high schools and elementary schools. But that's why it's so important for us. It's so important for me to really, highlight these kids and help these kids. It's because if we can't take care of our own backyard, then really, like, what are we doing, right? So that's our team right there. We take this picture about once a year when we hold big company-wide meetings before our Turkey Bowl. But if you guys are in the area, I mean, obviously right now is not the opportune time because the office is closed with everything going on. But we would welcome you to come in, check it out, see the way it operates, because we consider every kid that works with us part of our family, and that's a big extended family that everybody has working for them. So just wanted to highlight that and give a shout out to all the people that are watching and the ones that are working right now remotely. So our agenda for today, 5 major things we want to cover. The first is the partnership, because between the strike and now what's going on with the virus and, some things in between, I think that announcement kind of got lost in the shuffle. We've seen a number of kids and coaches that have been nominated and received those awards, but now's the time. Now's the time to take advantage of it with the lack of playing opportunities and the kids can't be on the field or on the court competing. We really need to bear down and help them when they need help the most. The second piece is, what specifically do the athletes need to do, right? Because we have both the athlete product, we have the coach awards, the team edition. We want to highlight both of those things, show them how they can work together. Towards the end of this, we're going to give kind of a recap, year in review. Hopefully we didn't see the last of Chicago Public League sports for the year. I know everything's up for grabs right now, and you did a great show the other day with a member of the IHSA that was making the decisions as to what's going on this year. But we want to give some highlights to what has happened and hopefully see what's next. And then we'll close this thing out with some next steps that both athletes and coaches need to take. So anything I missed there?
I think you got it all, Nelson.
All right. So as far as the partnership, this is something that's been worked on for a couple of years now. It was officially announced right around Thanksgiving of this year. I think the first week, maybe in December. We coming off of, like I just said, the strike, going into Christmas break. Now coming into this season, it didn't get the press or, wasn't really highlighted as much as it should be. But those 400 all-in awards, to paint a picture of that, that's the highest membership that anybody at NCSA can have. It's awarded to deserving student athletes, many of them which are in the CPS, those that demonstrate a financial need, that want to play at the next level, that meet those academic and athletic requirements. So 400 is not like the peak, that's not the ceiling. That's a goal that we want to blow past, right? That's a goal that we want to blow past. And how many schools are in the public league in total?
I believe it's almost to like 100 and with a few closures, it's over 150. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and it's a big number. And again, talking about whatever sport it is, some schools offer more sports, some less, but I think in pretty much any given sport, you're talking north of 40, 50 for most of the bigger sports, 100 on up, like you were saying. So, if we can't get to 4 of these awards per school, that's 1 per school per class, then we're not doing something right. Okay, and that's my challenge to everybody that's involved, coaches, players, families, you name it. Part of it too is, our ability to educate at schools. That's something that when school does get back in session, whenever that is, we want to come out there and we want to support your athletes, support your counseling staff, your administration. We want to schedule those assemblies and those on-site type events. And then the last thing, we touched on before, and you could dive into it a little bit, but helping out at some of those showcase type events or some of the things that CPS and the sports administration has been trying to do to highlight the athletes. The soccer showcase has been a great one. I know in baseball, we had a national event in that Geico games last summer. That's supposed to happen again this year out at UIC. So there's a number of things that the CPS group continues to do to highlight these kids. And we want to be there to support those. So attending all those events, anything that you want to talk about there, or things that really stuck out to you?
We here at Urban Fieldhouse Media and the High School Holla Sports Show, we encourage any athletic directors that are on here, coaches, and even the student athletes themselves. We take advantage of covering these events because it not only is the ground that we stand on and offering exposure, not only for the coaches and the student athletes, but also the schools and the parents. If you go to our website and you look at the Shining Star, some of our Shining Stars have taken place where we've attended signing days for anyone. We were at Morgan Park, for instance, a few years ago, and a gentleman got a scholarship for bowling. And we had an outstanding time just talking with the bowling coach, the athletic director, the student athlete, the family who were there in attendance, and it's just a joyful opportunity. These events not only show that your school is accomplished, your program is accomplished, but it also shows the character of the student athletes that you guys are coaching, and it's a important tool from up for our standpoint is because you can direct these coaches not only in partnering with NCSA, but also to, hey, I have experience talking to news reporters, news media, and so forth. And a lot of things that we're doing now is gonna have to be done, whether we want to, believe it or not, with this pandemic, it's gonna have to be done socially through social media and coverage. And just like newspaper clippings that Nelson talked about, we used to cut those out and save those. These type of coverages that we offer on the High School Holla Sports Show is another way. And if you're attending, we had an opportunity, Nelson can speak to it as well. When we were at the soccer event, we talked to a number of the student athletes that were at that soccer event, representing a lot of different schools from Chicago Public League. And it was a great time and served for a great show for us, just to be able to talk to, Nelson, some of the other college coordinators they have, and Juliana Zavala, who was out there from CPS Sports Administration, and then the student athletes were great, man. So these events that you host, you need to let people know. Send out emails and let us cover those events. Let NCSA come out and help you, with these events, because that's the reason why this partnership is so important. That we can be able to highlight the school, the coaches, the student athletes, and even get the joy of the families. And that's an
For sure.
important aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so cool to see them out there and just sticking around all day and getting a view of the best kids against the best kids in the city. And
Yep.
it's not something that you could take for granted, because here we are, we can't do that at the moment. So you got to soak up every minute. And let's talk a little bit about like what the athletes need to do specifically. And you and I talked before we actually hopped on air, and I was expressing to you how it's been a little bit frustrating, right? Because we're sending stuff out and maybe people think there's something attached or strings attached. They got to do something above and beyond just what's asked of them. But it's really pretty simple. The kids, any of you athletes that are on right now, just go to that allinaward.cpsathletes.com, or even if you go to cps.team down there at the bottom, it'll bring that to that link as well. But first you need to register, okay? Because we want to make sure that you're attached to the right school, that we recognize, which organization that you're with. And once that happens, all you have to do is fill out the application. For a lot of you, I've been blowing you up, hitting you with emails and text messages and, letting you know that you need to do it. Again, that's just part of the process. And you have to understand, when it comes to giving away a lot of these services that we do, we have to stay compliant with the NCAA, right? So there's certain paperwork that we need to fill out. We need to acknowledge which ones that we're helping out, whether they are part of the paid program or part of the All In Award or some other different programs that we have, because we don't want to jeopardize their amateurism. We don't want to, get them into any conundrum that they can't get out of. So that's the purpose behind taking those steps. That's it. Does that sound difficult to you?
Well, I got a quick question, Nelson.
What's up?
So you're telling me all they need to do is just take the time, register, and apply, and that's it?
Yeah, even if you got one hand behind your back and your eyes are closed and it takes you a little bit longer, the entire process right there, registering, might take 2 minutes, and filling out that application should take 10, 15, maybe 20.
Now, are there any sports that are included in this registration that might not? Do you cover all sports?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that comes up a lot. So, we work in 34 different sports. Some of the ones that I know Chicago Public Schools have that don't cross over into what we offer, and you talked about a little bit before, bowling. is one. And I think that has to do more just with the limited number of college programs. And then, hey, either you got the score or you don't, right? So that's kind of where the line's drawn on that. A couple other ones, gymnastics we don't offer. I know there's big dance programs throughout the city that are considered sports and under the IHSA banner. So we don't do the dance part, and I think that might be it. But on the opposite end, I'll tell you what we do have. We actually go as far as offering esports assistance now, which, did you know that Chicago is the birthplace of college esports?
Robert Morris University.
Boom, you just hit it.
We did a show on it. That's the only reason I know. I did a show, a city talk on esports, and that's becoming big.
It's huge. It's huge. And, we laugh about it and joke around about it. But hey, if it's going to help somebody get their school paid for and it's something they're passionate about, who am I to say that that's right or wrong or a sport or not a sport? We're just looking for opportunities, right?
That's
so, it. Yeah. So for you kids there that are part of, maybe a gaming club, or it might not be an official sport at the high school level, we do offer that. And there's over 200 schools now that offer, those college scholarships for gaming. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Once they do those two things, then it's time to act, and you see the one-on-one support there. I'll hop into the next slide in a minute, but once you're granted that all-in award, you get a recruiting coach assigned to you who's a former, college coach, college athlete that has been through the process, that's really going to hold your hand a little bit, hold you accountable. You guys are going to talk about how to reach out to different schools, how to research the different schools. So not only do you have your sport coach, at the high school, or if you play on a travel team or a club, but now you have an actual recruiting coach who's an expert in that field, and that's part of that program.
Now, Nelson, of course, we have all different spans of athletes out here. Do you have to be of a certain caliber type of athlete to register for the All-In Award?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think that's it's, I don't want to say debatable, but what I can tell you is that there are schools out there that many people have never heard of. It's harder in many cases. Again, this is depending on what school you're at. In a lot of cases, it's harder to be a varsity starter in high school than it is to find a college roster spot. Right? There's some small schools out there. There's some places that are looking for people that are passionate about it, and it may not be, the school that is your dream school or the one that you've heard about. Okay, but it's a school that's going to have your major, right? That's going to have your sport. And when it boils down to it, if the school has 800 kids or 80,000 kids, the people on your team are going to be the ones you're closest to, right? That's going to be your family. That's going to be the ones that are going to stand up at your weddings and be the godparents of your children. And those are your lifelong friends, right? Both in high school and in college. So, I look at it from that perspective. And I think if somebody really wants it, and they put themselves out there, there's going to be a spot for them. I'm pretty confident with that.
I like that.
So just to kind of drive home this point about, what these athletes are deserving of and what they're given with the All-In Award, in front of you right there, you see all the different services, all the different memberships that NCSA offers, from the free side, and our good, better, and best offerings. By virtue of receiving that All-In Award, boom, like you're right to the top. You get every bell and whistle. And I was talking to one of the athletic directors yesterday, and he's like, I've seen you guys, and it seems like a really cool thing, but what's the catch, or what do the kids get, or what do they have to pay for? And I'm like, listen, like we targeted 400 athletes this year, and you have about 100, from this particular high school that are already in our system. And if all 100 are deserving, like, let's give it out to them, right? So that's the thing, is that there is no catch here. The thing is, the kids have to go through that process, like I said. So any questions on that? I mean, Spoon, you see the list of things they get.
Man, I can't. I just got to tell you this, man. From looking from this list, you know, input to your favorite colleges, see your match analysis, online recruiting classes. I mean, I don't think you guys miss a beat with this All In award. It seems like uh, just what you're asking for is just a time and effort to register.
That's
That's
it.
it.
That's it. And then if you work from the bottom up right there, some things that people could be doing right now and need to be doing, the test prep, right? The SAT, ACT test prep with our partner Method, college funding. That's one of the biggest questions we always get about the FAFSA and what they need to be doing there. Part of that all-in award is you get, consultation when it comes to that. Sitting down and just breaking down your game film, right? Question before about, do you need to be a great athlete? Well, that's a subjective term, but let's look at the film, because the film don't lie. Anybody that's ever been to
That's
film
true.
session, the film don't lie. But let's break it down and see what you need to improve upon, and see like what your skill set right now, where you potentially could go. So it's really not only helpful, but also kind of just enlightening, because it gives you a perspective that you may have not had before. But again, you gotta just take that initial step.
Now, Nelson, I see on your list there's live support 7 days a week. Is there a particular day or hour set up with, if I'm a student athlete and I apply and I'm awarded this, is there a certain time of the day that I have an opportunity to get this support?
Um, we have our support system, and it's always going in one way, shape, or form, whether it's automated, or a live person. So if you're calling in the middle of the night, you may not get somebody. I don't know how many 3 a.m. recruiting emergencies there are, but our team, that picture I showed before, especially that member support team, they're outstanding on getting back to people. And if they don't have the answer that you're looking for, get it in the hands of somebody that does. And again, with this all-in award, you have a person assigned to you. And I know, for a lot of them, like that becomes an extension of their family, so you don't have to worry about just calling our general number. You're gonna have the chance to know the person, know about their family, know about what they do, know about their background. So really becomes an extension of what you're doing.
That's awesome. Awesome.
So let's talk about the coaches here. And we talked about what the athletes need to do or should be doing. Um, Coaches, it's on you to really step up too. And if there's athletes that are unsure of themselves or that haven't gone through that registration, you can nominate them, and you can see the URL right there, or you can go to that cps.team at the bottom, and that will bring you an opportunity to do so. And then the second part of that is, completing your team edition page and getting that up and going. And that doesn't just apply for the players that are part of the all-in program, or ones that have went through all the different steps. If you put your roster in there, you'll be able to navigate that and connect them with different schools and do different things. But all you need is the roster, and I'd be happy to help you out with that. The next thing I have on here is the social media. And, Spoon, I'll let you touch on this one, because we were talking before about it. And what's some good recommendations that coaches should be doing, on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, whatever it is?
Well, one of the things that I like to throw out there, as you already have it listed, is nominate. Just as you can nominate your student athlete for the All In Award, you could also nominate them to be a shining star on the H2S2 High School Holla Sports Show. Our segment for Shining Stars is basically we talk one on one with student athletes about their accomplishments in the sport that they play, in the classroom, and what they might be doing in the community. As we mentioned earlier, when it comes to social media, we've talked to quite a few different collegiate coaches that have talked to us about the character. And one of the things that we've been hearing is they check out social media to see what a student athlete is doing outside of the coach's watchful eye, or what the parents aren't seeing on social media. So social media is very important. And we've mentioned it from NCSA articles about how the do's and don'ts of social media, but also how to interact with coaches, the periods that you can and can't on social media. But we also offer the opportunity to communicate with coaches through your interviews. And so we hope that you're not only nominating your student athlete for the All In Award, but you nominate them for us to be a guest on our show as a shining star. Because social media, it seems to be where recruiting is going to head as we get into budgets for college recruitment. And a lot of coaches and a lot of colleges can't send coaches out to certain areas of the country. And so social media might be the thing. We might be seeing Zoom to interview,
Oh,
or
it's
have
happening.
meetings. Yeah, it's happening now. So
Yep.
prepare yourself and clean up your social media pages. Coaches, you can put out stats on social media. We've utilized coaches on Twitter that have posted game day stats of their highest scorer or a shining star of the game as when we come out and cover uh, sport events for CPS, we cover by doing Facebook Live, which is what? Social media. We do a
Yep.
pre-game interview with the coaches. We do a post-game interview with the coaches. And we also interview our shining stars of the game. And sometimes it's not just one player, it could be multiple players. But it's another use of social media that might catch a coach's eye. And we'll get into more of that because when we talk about Chicago Public League highlights throughout the year, I have a bunch of them that I
Sure.
covered games of. But I really wanted to stress the point is that's how our coverage is going.
Yep.
We've had over almost 4,000 views on our last football game of the year, which was the fight for Foster, where it was Edmonton versus Von Steuben, and 4,000 people saw our pre and post game. And so that's where social media is headed, and you need to just utilize that. So coaches, utilize that to post stats, to post your team's records, but also nominate them for this All In Award. And I think you can cover all your bases social media wise on that.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing, I'll say with the social media is it's a great tool for that initial like broadcast. Like, hey, I'm going to introduce this player to the world, right? Like they did X, Y, and Z. But what I've heard from college coaches is sometimes that sends them like down a rat race where they're like, all right, like that's great. Like the kid can obviously play, but what are his grades? What are his test scores? What about all that? How do I contact him, or her? So that's why just filling out that profile is going to be important because if you put a link to that, the coach has it at their fingertips. They have everything in one place. They have additional video. They have the transcripts up there. They have all the information that they're going to need rather than just like, hey, here it is, but you can't have it, which is,
Yeah.
kind of a difficult thing. And, just to reiterate what you said too, if you have some athletes that fit in with that shining star, I mean, how cool is that to highlight, an individual athlete for what they've done, not saying they have to be a state champion or,
No.
something like just, how are they impacting, your team, their community, like everything that's going on. That's as exciting as anything, right? That's
And
so very cool.
some of the very things that you mentioned are some of the core questions that we ask our student athletes about their grades. What do they want to major in the next level? And we even offer them to offer other student athletes advice. How do you balance school and athletics? What might work for one might work for others. And so we have fun doing it and we fool around and we joke around. But those core questions that you mentioned are the basis behind our Shining Star segment. And it really does speak to a character of kids. When we talk about and we hear some of the things that these students that's been on our show want to major in, it blows my mind. I wasn't
You're
even
like, what's
thinking on
that?
this level. I'm like, right. I'm like, man, here I am just wanting the ball and do something minor. And these guys are really trying to do something major from Chicago Public League. And it is something when you fill out that profile, as Nelson mentioned, and you come on as a guest on the show, it really speaks volumes to these kids' character. And not only that, the coaches that coached.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the last thing on here, and, you and I touched on this earlier when we were talking, um, but coaches recognize that, and I think you do, for a lot of these kids, like, you're more than just a coach, right? And right now, more than ever, they're stuck at home. Many of them, maybe not in the best situation. Whatever sport it was, that was their escape. That was the way to get away from all the nonsense, all the headaches and heartaches. And I'm going to challenge each of you just to continue to reach out to them, right? Check on those guys, check on those girls, see how they're doing, see how you can help. um, I think there's exceptions to some social distancing when it comes to making a social impact. And that's something that I know for me personally. um, you know I grew up in one of my coach's houses, essentially, because I happened to be best friends with his son. But it made a difference in my world, and I don't know where I would have ended up if that wasn't the case, or how I would have treated life differently. So just recognize that, kind of approach that, and continue to encourage them through this time, even when you might not feel it yourself to be very encouraging. They need it. They
And
definitely need it.
I also want to add, in addition to what's already been mentioned by Nelson, we also have a coaches chatter segment that speaks to the coaches on a one-on-one basis, and we talk to you guys about how you got started in coaching, some of the rewards and some of the challenges in coaching. And what it is basically we want to take the coach outside of the win-loss columns and allow people to see that you offer these student athletes a whole lot more than wins and losses or teaching them the game and the sport. You guys are those cheerleaders that they don't see at practice. You guys are the disciplinarians throughout school, both in the classroom and on the field or on the court. And our coaches chatter segment speaks to that. And we as well want to acknowledge the hard work that you guys and the endless hours that you guys put in helping mold these young people to the next level.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. Because there's definitely, I've seen some of the best coaches in my life that were at schools with not the best records, and I've seen some really bad coaches that just have a tremendous amount of talent at their disposal. So, no, thank all of you coaches that are on here, because you definitely make a difference. So public league highlights. We talked about things that people need to be doing, both coaches and athletes, but let's talk about what they've already done. So you've probably been out to more events, throughout the city than anyone. So when you think about this 2019, 2020 school year and the different sports, what sticks out in your mind?
Wow, I have a lot of them, Nelson, and I'll just run through a few of them. I could talk about one volleyball match, man, that blew my mind. I just had a ball watching CPS volleyball. I think Cynthia Irvin does a great job in highlighting these girls and their accomplishments. When I talk about football, I went to one game. There's a few games out there, that we attend. We attend a game a week, and they are part of our H2S2 high school football game of the week, as well as girls volleyball as part of our Diva Sports game of the week. But there was a football game, and if I can recall it, it was between Gary Coleman College Prep and DuSable Panthers, and the Catamounts and the Panthers. And man, the the Panthers had 13 players on the
Oh,
entire
wow.
team. 13 players.
That's
And
Iron Man football right there.
and one of them almost got hurt. And man, you know, just to see the efforts from these kids, and this game went into overtime. Another one was Kelly versus Longwood Panthers. Kelly Trojans versus the Longwood Panthers, and I can just go on these games. But overall, and it's most unfortunate. One of the biggest highlights that I've seen in girls basketball. You have the great Dorothy Gators going back to back state championship. for the Marshall Lady Commandos, and then the Simeon Wolverines. Coach Jonathan Davenport and his coaching staff did a great job, and those girls capturing 3A. I've seen a lot of basketball this season, and it's just unfortunate that the boys didn't get on the 3 and 4A level get to do their things. But there were a lot of highlights in fall ball, man, and I just tip my hat to them. And there's some track highlights. It's just too many to name, too many. But
Well,
CPS came around big time, and
yeah,
soccer.
yeah. I will say this: you just hit on track. For the session today, it was remarkable the number of track athletes that had submitted their information. I'm so accustomed to seeing a lot of the football and the basketball and the baseball, and soccer has obviously been a great relationship, but man, oh man, I'd say a third of the people that came through were track athletes, and I want to do a little dive into that and see some of them, because that's a whole different animal when you consider like the Olympics this year, right? Like, we
exactly.
feel bad about the kids missing out on their spring sports or the end of the winter season, but heck, could you imagine putting in 4 years or 8 years or 10 years of work for the Olympics, and now that's going to be canceled? Holy smokes.
And we have some burners in the Chicago Public League. There's
For sure.
some great track athletes in the Chicago Public League.
For sure. And for many of them, they probably have no idea where to go, right? No idea where to go. So that's why for all those that are still on the line, make sure that you fill that stuff out. So looking ahead to next year, what has you most excited? Again, I don't want to skip over and assume that's all lost for 2019, 2020, but either way, we're nearing the end of that. But when you look ahead, what's the big thing that you got circled on your calendar, or, you got running through your head about 2020, 2021?
Well, I got to always keep circled city championships. I had the privilege, and this was my first time covering lacrosse. So I had to do my homework. But I have to tip my hat, man. Lacrosse city championships is one. Soccer is big. And now that Chicago Public League has changed the way they do their seeding to like they do it in
That's
professional.
unbelievable. Was that one of the coolest things ever last year, or what?
Man, I enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to it again. And as always, you look to your big sports. I always enjoy the Prep Bowl. I like to see the best of the best, from the Public League and the Catholic League go at it. But just to see how, Jaton Jackson has done in realigning the conferences year in and year out, as well as in basketball with Cynthia Irvin and Tony, how they do things. And I just look forward to a lot of that. But really, I also got to throw in track. We just talked about it, but I didn't know until I attended my first Chicago Public League indoor track championship at UIC. And I got to tell you, it was a tremendous thing seeing the smaller schools competing on a bigger level. Student athletes in track, man, they impress me. They really do impress.
For sure.
Those are just a few of the things that I'm looking forward to. And girls lacrosse is up there. I got to tell you.
Who was in the lacrosse championship?
This year was the Taft and I think Lincoln Park.
In Lincoln Park, okay. Yeah, I had the chance to go to a Lane Tech lacrosse event. They had like a fundraising thing and talk to some of the parents and stuff. But it's one of those sports that is growing just so rapidly and popping up in more places. So, and the nice thing about it, it's a non-cut sport too, right? So
right.
A lot of opportunity there.
But I also got a circle on my calendar, Nelson. NCSA's events. I mean, I can't speak enough how when we were out at that soccer event, it was tremendous. It was truly tremendous. I like that opportunity. So I got to circle those events on my calendar as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And we're looking forward to doing more of those, again, once we come out of this. So, real quick, then we'll answer some of these questions that we had coming in here. But just next steps. If you're an athlete, you need to register. Again, go to that cps.team. If you're a coach, you need to nominate your player or players. Once you do that, you got to apply. So you'll almost immediately get a link to that application for the All-In Award. Complete that, and then at that point, you'll get a member of our team that's going to reach out to you, that's going to take you through, who you need to speak to and who your coach is that you're assigned to, and really help you get going. Okay, but if we don't do those three things, we can't give you what you're so deserving of. Okay, so I'm pleading with you to please do it, because I really want you to take advantage of that opportunity. And I think the same thing for you, right? Kind of different parts of it, maybe not as formalized as much, but right? You tell them what they got to do to get in touch with you.
We really are inviting any and all. Doesn't matter what level they are in or what their skill set, but we want to invite any and all coaches to join us, as well as student athletes, on our segment on the High School Holla Sports Show. We have two great segments that speak to both parties. Coaches Chatter, again, speaks to the coaches, your efforts in coaching, some of the challenges, some of the rewards, how you got into coaching, and what our listeners can do to support the school, your program, and the student athletes. And as I mentioned them, we got to talk about the shining star. We talk again on one-on-one basis. We have a lot of fun with our student athletes from the Chicago Public League, and we talk to them about their accomplishment in the sport that they play, but also in the classroom and what they're doing in the community. It's our effort to highlight the positives when we're living in a world with so much negativity, and especially the stereotypical news press that we sometimes get for the city of Chicago. We want to show that our student athletes are thriving to go to the next level, and thus the next college student athlete to make it to the
well done.
So we want to make certain that we highlight the positivity behind the Chicago Public League through the coaches and through the student athletes. So we ask you to come on to the show as a guest. It's an open invite, and you can always reach out to us. So as soon after you register and nominate for NCSA All-In Award, then come on over to the High School Holla Sports Show.
Let's highlight them
and register and holla at us.
Yeah, there you go. And there it is right there. You see both of our email addresses. We'll answer some of the questions that came through, both on Facebook and also on Zoom. But if you have any that are coming out of this show, or you think about when you hang up, feel free to reach out with an email to either of us. But one question that was down here, it says, when it comes to highlight video, do you need your own photographers at your school games? And I'll say this, just thinking about how it was before and how it is now, like everyone has something right similar to this. You have a smartphone or an iPad. Many schools, even if they don't have enough for every student, they have some devices around. It's not that difficult to film games anymore, and you don't have to do this whole big movie setup or media setup. Just get what you can. And for a lot of sports, it doesn't even mean that you need game footage. Like, just show your skills off, whether it's on the soccer field, baseball field, in the gym, if you're just shooting hoops or, playing volleyball, whatever it is, just get something. Something is always better than nothing.
And just to let you guys know, again, we are utilizing social media as a part of our coverage. It's a tool that we're going to use on the High School Holla Sports Show moving forward. And we also are going to be out there trying to do different things when this pandemic is all behind us. You're going to see our faces out there a lot more. And as Nelson mentioned, everyone has an iPhone or a smartphone or a tablet of some sort. We're going to be out there highlighting scores, highlighting baskets. And so you can always utilize us. We're working on a YouTube channel coming up soon with some of the highlights and coverage from games that we've covered. And it's just a part of giving you guys the exposure and helping you. So a lot of schools that we've covered and gone to, we've seen that you guys got newspaper guys out there and film guys, and of course that's the way that coaches are filming now are on iPads and things
Yep.
like that. So
that makes it way easy. And one thing, I sound like a broken record. I feel like a broken record when I talk about this because I feel like I bring it up every single time I'm on a call or an interview or something. But I had a kid that played for me long ago before I was involved even with NCSA, and like superior athlete, wanted to go play college baseball and wasn't getting the love that he thought he should, and the looks that he think that he deserved. And he shows me this video of him dunking a basketball in catcher's gear. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. I'm like, that's unbelievable. I'm like, can you send that to me? So he sends it to me, and within a couple weeks, I blasted out to the contacts I had. He had some opportunities to go on some Division I visits. Ended up being a Division I baseball player out in Michigan, and it was because of a video of him dunking a basketball in catcher's gear. So
athleticism.
And that's one thing, in going to the coaches meetings, I can't tell you how many coaches I've spoken to, that, with the spring rolling around, to the softball coaches meeting, and, she was naming out a few of the girls that might be a good fit. And she's like, yeah, but I don't know if she wants to play volleyball or basketball or softball in college. She can do all three, but she just really hasn't poured herself into any one of them. But the athleticism, like, that's going to play. If you send out something showing how strong you are, how fast you are, how you move, some coach is going to pick up on it and be interested in that and find a spot for you.
And when we're talking about social media, put your workout on there. I mean,
Yep.
Show a coach that you're dedicated to what it takes to get to the next level, and also what it takes to get better. On our show, we often have a quote of the week. And one of the quotes that I'm always going to remember, that I find them and some people send them in to me. One is that you can outwork yourself and then you outwork your opponent. So, you got to put in the effort, man. And that's, it's all a state of mind. It's all a state of mind. And that's another good way to use social media. Show a coach that you're working out and how you're working out.
Yeah. And keep it fun too, right? Like, you got to get creative in these times. It's been interesting to follow some of the major league players. I saw one guy down in Texas, and he's got a big old hog, and he's doing squats with the hog on his back, throws it in the truck. They showed Joey Gallo the other day, and he's living in like some beautiful high-rise condo with all this glass around it, and he's sitting on a tee, into this big net. And you're like, man, don't break the window. But you got to get creative now, and it's fun.
Wilson Contreras and his brother.
Oh yeah, with the gun,
right?
The Nerf gun.
I mean, it make it fun and show people that you're working on your craft at all times.
Yeah.
I know that time away from school, time away from sports, it's frustrating. It is. It really is. But make it fun, because again, this too shall pass. This will be behind us soon, hopefully.
Absolutely. And I feel like, for you athletes that are still on listening, use this as a springboard. Use this as an opportunity to get better. And I feel like, I got 3 young children. I feel like, a lot of this generation might be defined by what happens, over the course of the next year. Like, some people are going to fall back. Some people are going to rise to the top. And I think all of you across the board are going to be more resilient because of it. But don't use it like, hey, this happened to me. Use this as like, hey, this happened to me, or I happened to this, and this is who made me who I am, not that it held you back. Because everybody's in the same boat, right? Nobody's getting ahead right now, or nobody's playing right now. So everybody's on even footing. So it's a good time to get after it.
It's kind of like the NFL commissioner Goodell said, nobody goes into the facility. Everybody just stay at home, to even the playing field. It's how bad you want it when all this is over. Nelson, I do want to throw out here, if I may, we welcome anybody involved in high school sports in the Chicago Public League who wants to come onto the show, as well as NCSA, to talk about this, man. Sometimes you got to vent,
Yep.
but we don't want to vent in a negative way. We just want to have some fun conversation on, like we did today, highlighting what you did in the winter, what happened in winter sports, and we're still having hope that we can salvage some spring sports. But just give us a call, send us an email. Like Nelson said, we're here to help give you the exposure that you deserve to get to the next level. But Nelson, I also wanted to find out from you guys, since you deal so directly with the collegiate level of things, how is this going to affect eligibility for some? Does it alter anything at all, or have you heard anything in that?
Yeah. So the spring athletes from this year, and this is across, all governing bodies. So the NCAA, NAIA, and the junior colleges have all granted, an extra year of eligibility. Okay, so that's something that is a positive, for a lot of those athletes. It's undoubtedly going to affect the athletes that are seniors in high school going into school next year, because the rosters are going to be a little bit bigger. And it's going to present some interesting challenges and decisions for the kids, many of them who aren't on a ton of scholarship, and they have to decide, okay, do I go continue to play, or do I go on with the real world and get into the workforce and try to find a job and do all that? So I don't think there's, a good or a bad with it. I think there's a lot that's still to be determined. The other thing is, how, like what the NCAA did, they had a meeting and a vote, and the Division I council came out of Monday pretty much leaving it up to the individual schools.
Okay.
They said, we're approving this across the board. How you handle it's how you handle it. And that's for tuition waivers and scholarship, and the roster sizes even. So, there's many programs even at the college level that are underfunded or not fully funded, that are going to be faced with tough challenges to talk to those athletes and be like, listen, like, we want you back, but we don't have the money for these additional scholarships. So again, I think it's going to create some unique challenges, and some decision making, but those tough times make tough people, and I think that's what's ultimately going to happen here.
Now, Nelson, if a student athlete is to, when they do register, um, how does NCSA handle their previous stats? Is it the most recent from the last season, or is it throughout their high school career?
Yeah, so it's fluid. It's you want to put your best up there, put your your highest score, your fastest time, your all those best metrics. One thing that we do see is at the younger levels, and that's why I put that little graphic up there. Everybody's on the clock, right? Just those younger kids, freshman, sophomore, it's a little bit slower clock, and it speeds up in a hurry once you hit that upper class level. But some of the younger kids sometimes don't put up stats or times or numbers because they're like, hey, they're not that good. College coaches have been through this for a long time, right? Like, they understand that a 17, 18-year-old or 19, 20-year-old is going to be bigger, faster, and stronger than a freshman or sophomore. Okay, but they want to see that progression. Same thing with the video. Like, get that stuff up, and they understand you're going to grow into something over time. So yeah, it's a constant work in progress, and that's one piece of advice that I give to the kids that I work with on the baseball side directly, is they want to say, okay, well, when do I have to do this? Or, when should this be complete by? Well, it's never complete, right? This is your athletic resume. This is something that every day you want to get 1% better. So do a whole lot, a little bit at a time, and you're going to be much better than trying to spend like 5 hours on a Sunday trying to knock it out and then not touching it for 5 months. So, slow and steady wins the race when it comes to that.
Well, there's a question on here from Daniel. Is there anyone that could help set up their profile, or is this all individual?
Yeah. So, Daniel, that's exactly what we're talking about. Register, apply, and then you get somebody assigned to you that's going to do exactly that. Like, they're not going to sit there and do it for you. Okay. That wouldn't be teaching anything, or wouldn't be the right thing to do, but they're going to, help hold your hand and give you some guidelines as to what to put on there, how to go about doing those. And the beautiful thing about the system, both for the coaches and the athletes, is that it's dynamic. When you log into your profile, it actually tells you specifically, like, hey, do this, go through this drill, spend 7 minutes, do this. So if you just follow those prompts, one a day, or a couple times a week, you're going to be in a good place, and you'll start to see those things rack up over time.
And one thing that I recently received some information from Max Prep that talked about, while we're in this pandemic, that coaches should add stats into their schools, profile page on that. So while you're adding them to your NCSA page, also add them to Max Prep coaches. That helps
For sure.
the students get out there as well. We utilize it a lot for games that we aren't able to go to or cover, because we could only be at one place at one time. But we also use Max Prep to update the scores and things like that. And then we, of course, have other ways of just, cross-referencing that. But Max Prep right now, while we're down and away from school and sports, put some stats in there in your Max Prep profile page,
Yep.
and utilize that as well to help your student athletes.
For sure. And the way, that you have to think about it is every athlete, or every program for that matter, it's your own brand, right? Like, just like Nike or Adidas or Under Armour or New Balance are their brands, and they use different channels to market themselves. The same thing with the athletes. Like, I'm not suggesting for a minute that NCSA is the only thing that you use. I am saying that it would be probably the most beneficial for guiding you through the process. But you've also heard us talk a lot about social media, about getting up on the Urban Fieldhouse website, about various things along the way. The more that you can get yourself out there and market yourself, the better off you're going to be. And Max Preps has been a great partner, I know, with the IHSA and CPS, and they're also partnered with us. So yeah, if there's a chance to do that, some downtime, coaches hop in on it and update your stuff there.
But I have to reinforce, All In Award, I don't see where you can go wrong starting there. Let that be your first step towards the next level. And I'm encouraging coaches, I'm encouraging student athletes. These things are out here for anything but to help you guys. And the more people from your program as a coach are going to the next level, the more that we can offer you in coverage, the more NCSA can offer you. That all just helps the community. It helps the city of Chicago. It helps the Chicago Public League. And that's what it's all about. It's all about bringing a positive uh, uh, culture back to high school sports. And that's why we did this in the first place. We want to bring back friendly high school rivalries, friendly competition. And we want to see student athletes grow and go to the next level. So, man, I encourage you, register your student athletes, nominate them. If they don't register themselves, am I correct in saying, Nelson? They can
Yep.
nominate them. So let's get these kids out here. Let's get them to the next level, and let's see them come back and help you coach and help you, lead
That's the
the next
best.
generation.
That's the best, when you get kids that you coach come back and coach for you, coach alongside you. My first year as a high school head coach, my varsity head coach from high school was my assistant. And I joke oftentimes, and I say before I call my wife or my mom, I called him up. I'm like, hey, old man, get your uniform out of retirement here, and we'll see if those pants fit. But because that's the impact that he had on me, and I look back on that year that we were together, and it was something pretty special. So great points he made there, and
I got a similar story. I covered Scher's Bulldogs, and most of their football staff are Scher's graduates.
yeah,
I mean, it was an amazing story. They were a part of our football summer preview. And so I had a great time, just like, wow. And then learning from other coaches who have come back to their alma mater to coach and to help build and pour back. Another coach that I'm very familiar with, first time guest on the show during our basketball preview, was Coach Byron Burt from Taft, basketball coach.
yeah,
And he came back to Taft. So it's a great opportunity to come back and give back to the community in other ways. And I just can't say enough. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about it. And if I can just mention one other segment that we have
have at it.
that will be great for us. It's called the H2S2 reporting crew, where we know that not all students are student athletes. And so we offer them an opportunity to learn about the broadcasting industry. And
Love
then
that.
we utilize them to be a guest on the show to talk about their school's athletics. So hopefully, when the next NCSA event, we'll have a bunch of student athletes covering it all over the place. So we'll
How
have it
about it?
all locked down.
We need
So,
to rep at every school, throughout
yeah,
the whole system. How cool would that be?
man, and it gives them a resume, just like we're saying NCSA gives student athletes. It gives them a profile, a resume, and the experience, and it also gives your school exposure. So we're
Yep,
recruiting for that too. So coaches, if you know, it could be your statistician, it could be your equipment manager, it could be whomever that follows the team, as long as they can willing to give us the extra time. I'm willing to show them how to do it, and they
that's
can be a
awesome.
constant. We've had one excellent one, Alex Bernstein. Man, he was excellent. He was actually he joined us as an eighth grader at TAP, and now he's at uh, Lane Tech, and he was a great student reporter for us, man. And so we are welcoming more. So that's
Love
great.
it. I think we're gonna have to do more of these shows like this. This is really enjoyable. I think hopefully everybody that logged in today, pulled something out of it, got something out of it. But I really enjoyed it,
Yeah, and I
and I
and
hope
I
you did.
appreciate it, man. It's been fun, and I think you got one more question before
Oh,
we
we
go.
do. Okay. So it says, just to recap, next step, to complete the all-in award form. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. That's correct. Daniel, again, Daniel's all over it, man. I appreciate you being so intuitive and asking all the right questions. But yeah, that's the next step. Complete that form. Then we'll send you that all-in award application. And at that point, once you complete it, you'll hear from somebody from our team. I would say no more than 48 hours afterwards, get you up and running, get you assigned to the right coach, and start to see some results. So again, I appreciate Spoon you being on, everybody that logged in on Facebook and Zoom, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Hey, and as I say,
I love it. Great way to end.
awesome, man. Thank you. Awesome job, man. I appreciate it.